I don't know if there's ever been a worse season to do this, but somehow, like...
Because it felt like we went from just trying to survive in the old building and like surviving, and then instead of just like dying off, we went from survival mode to thriving. And it's not normal, but like with Jesus and listening to him.
When you had texted me that you wanted to do this, it was a really good idea, I thought, because there's so much we've experienced throughout the years that we have not really even tried to do anything remotely close to this over the last couple of years. We've just been going after it.
Can slow down.
Just, you know, I guess like church planting is all warfare, you know, right at first. It's just all like, who are you? What are you doing? Where are you going? What's your foundation? Who are your leaders? And it's just so intense. I think we kind of made a choice to just not do the things that maybe even we knew we wanted to do right at first because it was just not time, right? Yeah. And so now when you text me, you're like, hey, we need to like draw the story out.
Yeah, like document. Like I was thinking of like the Old Testament and like them writing down the stories of the miracles and the wilderness and passing it on to the next generation and not forgetting like where have we come from? Because when you forget, you don't value what has been and what is, and you just continue on without any.
And I think I've learned to like fly comfortably at you may die and you may like win it all. And you forget sometimes that there's a lot of victories that we don't even share like throughout the years that are like that are major victories that need to be shared. And these are testimonies that the church needs to hear. So I thank you for the idea.
Yeah, so good. I'm so glad we get to do this. So tell me, like, first of all, how did you get to a church? Like, where were you raised in church, or were you like, I
was not raised in church. I share a lot of this on Sundays, but my first couple encounters with church weren't completely bad. I personally just didn't feel like they had anything that was worth talking about, really. I did have some positive encounters, like junior high with church, and went on a few like youth camp trips and things like that. And I do remember feeling the impact of God in those moments, but for whatever reason, when I left, it was gone. It was just, it didn't last. It wasn't lasting. And so I had a very, very rough upbringing. I don't want to get into that. I don't want it to be a personal testimony. You can hear plenty of this if you go back into our archives as a church. Like you can hear a lot of that. But I was so angry as a young guy trying to figure it out. And I vented a lot of that through music. And so I was a musician. I did that for years. And then one day someone came to me and presented the living God and spoke into my life that radically changed. And that encounter radically changed me forever. I've been marked. That happened when I was 22 years old. And over the course of the last 17 plus years,
a defining moment.
I mean, I've devoted my life to one thing. That's it. So how did I get here? It was an encounter with Jesus that changed me. And I can't stop talking about it, and I won't stop talking about it. You know, I'm going to be 40 years old this school year. I'm getting older. And so you think like almost 18 years of walking with Jesus like that. I mean, I just can't do anything else with my life. I've given my life away. So how did I get involved with church and all this? Like, I just had an encounter with Jesus.
And you just decided I just want to pour into the community around you where you were in Bakersfield then?
I was, but I didn't, it wasn't a conscious decision. Like I found out he was real, and something happened within me. Something was birthed within me that I know now is the Holy Spirit. But then it was just, all of a sudden I felt life. And I had to share it, and I just couldn't stop. And it was like, all I wanted to do was talk about Jesus. All I wanted to do was read the Bible. All I wanted to do was share my faith. All I wanted to do was pray with people. Every day the church's doors were open. I was in the church. I was at the Bible studies. I was just eating it up. I was hungry. Like this spiritual baby had been born, and it was like, feed me. And I had to go after it. And so for me, my first encounter with Jesus, it was an encounter with the living God, and I was just hungry for it. I was hungry for it. So I just,
You got to give it to other people.
I didn't make even a decision like, oh, I want a career path as a pastor. Wow. The first word I got was a word that I would be a pastor. And so I know you guys have heard this. I don't want to share it again, but like, so like I'm sitting at a retail store counter and a guy who I had just barely met at work walks up to me and tells me, Brad, I've been praying for you. And I laughed at him. I was like, oh, really? What's that do? And he says, well, I know God's told me that you're going to be a pastor. And I said, well, he has a lot of work to do because I don't believe in him. And he said, well, he told me he's going to make you a pastor and he's going to give you influence. And I literally laughed, like belly laughed at this guy. And I had there's no person probably on the earth outside of, maybe like someone who's murdering people or whatever, but like I was so far from God, it was not even like in my realm of thinking that was even a possibility. Yeah. Like, I'm like, you've got the wrong guy. Wow. It's not me. I don't fit the church mold. Mm-hmm. Like I have way too much inside of me. I'm too raw probably.
And how long after that did you end up leading or in a role of some kind? Like how long after that was it that like you were like, I need to release this and for people. I need to like lead people.
Ooh, I think I went back immediately. So I had that encounter, and this person, I was, like I said, playing music. I was in a band, and we were doing a lot of like shows with really dark bands, and we're touring and doing a lot of stuff. And I had a dream. Okay, yeah. God showed up in a dream, and it was very real. And I woke up from this dream, and he audibly spoke to me. It's the only time in my life I've heard him audibly like that. And he told me to change the lyrics to a song as we were about to play a festival. And I don't share this story very often. And so this song was a blasphemous song. I would actually dedicate this song to Jesus when we were playing shows. Whoa. Before I was a believer. And he told me to change the lyrics to the song. And it was just open blasphemy from an angry kid at 22 years old is all it was. Yeah. And God spoke to me through this dream, and I woke up and he told me to change the lyrics to the song. And I went to my band the following day and I said, guys, I got a problem. I said, God's real. And they were like, shut up, man. I'm like, no. He's real.
He talked to me.
They're like, no, like, you're just messing. I'm like, no, like, he's really, really real. I have a problem. Like, because what do you do when you find out he's real? It's like, you ask, like, how'd you get in ministry? How'd you get in church? There's a lot of people who you guys like dance with it. You're like, you're like, kind of like, you're not even slow dancing. You're like in and out. It's awkward dancing. Like for me, the question was real simple. Is God real? If he's real and he's given us the Bible and he says, follow Jesus. Like for me, it was just like, okay, all right. This makes things simple. Like if he's actually real, not just like a figment of our imaginations, not just like religious pressure, but if he's actually real, it changes everything. It's like, what else do you live for? I don't know. Like for me, it was so simple. So like that question, how did you get into ministry? Like, I don't know. In your experience, like when he's real, like what else is there to talk about, right?
The whole subject changes. It's like, okay, I don't even want to do that anymore. All I want is this. Or how can I even change? How can I tell them about him? And sometimes you have to shift some things.
And I don't even know that when I walked into church, I think I loved our church. I loved the church we went to. I was raised in it. I've been to 2 churches. One that I was at for 14 years, and then now one that we've started. Dang. Like, so I was very committed. I saw the church as a family, very committed. Even if it was a family that listened to bad music before they preached. Wow. Like, even though the worship music wasn't great, it wasn't quite what I was used to. I come from the music scene, and I was like, wow, we're like innovating and creating, and we're doing all these like awesome things, like pushing our creative spirit out there. And then like I come into the church and it's like everyone's enslaved and they're playing music from the 90s. I was like, at first it was a huge barrier for me. Yeah, it was bad. Like you survived church in the 90s, you could survive anything. But I walked in and I'm like, okay, so God's real. Mm-hmm. The music's interesting. I love what the pastor's saying. I love that when I pray with these people and we go do stuff, like, man, I'm experiencing things. We're seeing God stuff break out. But it was just, I was grieved a little bit because I saw people, I'm like, do all these people know that he's rose from the dead?
Exactly.
For me, it was just an interesting perspective. So I'm like, do they actually know that Jesus is alive and that you don't have to die? Like, the simple things.
That's good.
Like, they could take or leave church. They're like, I'd rather watch football or whatever. Like, for me, that just never connected. I was like, yes, now, like, I'd love to have a Sunday off occasionally. Like, so I get it. But at first, I was just so raw and on fire that it was like, do they know that, like, Jesus is alive? Mm-hmm. And so it was a little difficult. I grieved a little bit.
I feel like you still have that inside of you for, like, that's the, like, apostles thing that you carry, like, for the people outside of the church, too. Like, I see that, like, they don't know. Like, it's like they don't know, and they need to know.
If they knew, it would affect their life.
Mm-hmm. So with believers and non-believers, I think you carry that, like, hunger still. Yeah, totally. So when did you get this? When did you were serving in a church, but, like, when did you feel this call to make some shifts? Or, like, did you always know you wanted to pastor a church? Or was it like, I mean, you had that prophetic word from that man years before, but, like, when did you just feel like, I think I'm supposed to do something with this?
I remember our last tour as a band, something had shifted in that season. I had met Shanna, my wife, and there's a story there too, but I just, for the first time, saw myself outside of music, and it was new for me, and I could never imagine my life without music. And it was the first time on this last tour, as we were wrapping up, I just felt like there was a shift, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, and I was really wrestling with it in prayer. And I remember specifically, I was vacuuming the house in this little apartment that me and Shanna had as we were just about to get married, about 3 months before we were married. Shanna actually painted the apartment on her own and all this stuff while I was out on tour collecting unemployment checks. Like, so she's been a soldier from the beginning. But I'm vacuuming the house and I'm, like, really struggling. I'm like, God, why am I not feeling this? What do you want from me? I'm like, God, I don't know why I'm not connecting with the band right now. Like, what's my next step? God, I just want to preach. Like, I want to, like, just me and the Bible and some people, right? And I'm praying this prayer as I'm vacuuming. And I heard the Holy Spirit tell me to get down and start praising God.
That's worship.
And so I shut the vacuum off and I lay on my face and I start praising God. And I'm just like, Lord, I thank you because you've got a plan for my life or whatever. And I saw, like, a flashing red light. I saw Jeremiah 1:9, and it said, behold, I have put my words inside your mouth. And I've called you to plant, build, to tear down, to build up, this whole thing, right?
Good.
It was, like, supernatural. I literally that day made a call to the band, to our manager, to everybody. I said, hey, I'm out. God spoke to me. And I, from there, you know what I did is I became a janitor. I got a set. It was prophetic. Yeah, so I went from vacuuming the carpet and getting a word in worship to I'm going to be a nighttime janitor working with my aunt at a school district. And I just volunteered with Youth for Christ, which is a national, like, outreach organization. They do campus outreach, but they also do juvenile detention ministry. And so it was a very, like, gut level decision. It's like, okay, so God confirmed it. I got to do something. And I thought, where would I go? Okay, so I'm a kid who didn't really have a dad. I need to go places where there's kids who don't really have a dad. And so I just started volunteering in juvenile hall, and that's really where my ministry started taking off.
That's good. It's just, like, starting with the kids.
Yeah, 100%. I go into juvenile hall, and I was so raw.
Yeah.
I just go in and just release testimonies in these kids and release just the God stories and just raw, like what God was doing in my life and where he had taken me from. And I'm like a 25-year-old kid just releasing everything I could on these students. And we saw hundreds of kids get saved in these detention centers in the first, like, couple years. And it was, while that's happening, I mean, literally hundreds of kids in these detention centers getting saved. The pastors at the church I was going to, because I was still faithful to church, they said, hey, so we're told that you have like an anointing for ministry. We questioned all the young leaders in the church, and we said, who's like an emerging young leader that has the ability to lead or whatever? And they said, Brad Lawson. And so I wasn't even looking for it. And I get a call from someone in the church. They said, hey, Pastor Tom Touchstone, which was my mentor, he'd like to meet you after church. And I said, okay. And he said, yeah, just meet him up front. And I went and met him up front. He says, hey, do you want to help me plant a church in Visalia?
Whoa.
And I said, sure. I said, but I can't leave juvenile hall. Those are my kids. What do you want me to do? He's like, well, just follow me and we'll figure it out. And we started a youth group there with one girl, and her name was Hope. And that's how my ministry started, like in mainstream church, was really like at a church plant in Visalia. So.
And it's just cool, like you doing something in the secret place. I love that. Like God, like David out in the fields, taking care of like the sheep, the whole deal with David in the Bible. And like God honors that and sees his heart and his protection heart, his worship heart, like his everything that he had. And then he chose him to be a king. Like it started in that place, hidden, and I just think that's pretty cool.
Well, you asked about like how did it happen? I'm like, I don't really remember making a decision saying I want to be a pastor.
Yeah, that's cool. And
No, I was just gonna say that it's like that word in your life almost.
Yeah, and then with one person, and then just like be stewarding that one person, like this person is enough.
That youth group went from one person to one young girl named Hope, what's her name, and to like 80 students in like less than a year. We were picking them up from skate parks and just picking them up from apartment complexes. I would take like 2 or 3 like Suburbans full of like youth kids. So we'd have leaders that would go like local mission trips or like California mission trips, and we'd bring them down, and we would like grab these kids from all areas of the city, bring them, take them home, meet their parents, like meet the needs. It was so rad and so fun, but it's just like for anyone out there who maybe you're like trying to find your purpose. My question probably comes from a little different place. Like, how can you find Jesus and not find your purpose? You know, like, I don't know, like for me, the two are so connected. Like over my daughters right now, on a regular basis, I'm praying that they could find a passion and a purpose that's so big that they have to go to Jesus to accomplish it. Right? Like it has to be connected. The two, like, I don't think you can disconnect your relationship with God from your relationship in ministry. It's heaven and earth, right? Like, so it's like some people are just stuck in heaven, and staying in heaven doesn't really help anyone here. Like, so like I would love church. I love church. I love worship. I love prayer. But it's never once crossed my mind that that's all I'm supposed to be doing. It's like this message is supposed to go to people.
Yeah. It's not just about you.
So people would say like, oh, well, you're a pastor, so you're extra special. No. Nowhere in the Bible does it say that like pastors are the only ones that are supposed to spread the gospel. You know, like, so like there's no super spiritual people. There's no like clergy and common people. We are all common people. We are all ordinary radicals. We're supposed to be. And like, I think I get frustrated in that because people look at me like I'm a radical, and I'm going, I'm not a radical. Like my life decisions would barely make the pages of the Bible. Like if you were like, oh, tell me your story. Yeah. Okay, so you started a church. Oh, and you're suffering in Southern California. Like I'm not suffering. I'm really not suffering. Yeah. I've went through some hard stuff. We've had some challenges, you know, in my life, obviously, that got me to where I am. Like I've had challenges for sure. But to be honest, like I'm not being beheaded for my faith.
Right.
There's a lot of other stuff that I could have went through that I didn't go through. So it's never crossed my mind like, how do I find purpose? It's like, Jesus is alive.
It's the same thing when you were younger. Like, I just got to get this out. Do you not realize? So in California, what was the shift from that church to being here, or like how did you know you needed to be on the coast, or like did you have a vision for the coast? Did God give you like a vision for the coast?
You know, so like it's interesting. I ended up getting a job with that church full time in youth ministry. Church called Valley Bible Fellowship for I was on staff full time over 10 years, 10 or 12 years, I don't remember. And did that faithfully, just served and was on campuses doing outreach. And then one day we did kind of like we had a vision to do some type of church plant along the coast, and it was not my vision. I didn't think I was the guy. I was content with campus ministry, college outreach, student leadership. It just was not in my heart. I was actually pushing other people to do it. And we were in Ventura, and we were doing this video on the pier, and I go to get coffee for the team, and I'm at Starbucks. It's 5 a.m., dark outside, and I walk outside from Starbucks, and for the first time in my life at 31, 32 years old, I felt God release me from the ministry I was in. Dang. And my response to that, I said, if that's you, confirm it, and I'll give it all my heart.
And were you thinking of like, okay, if you release me, I'm going to stay here?
No, in my mind, it was plant a church. Yeah. Plant a church. We were praying about it. So it was like, plant a church. And I said, if that's you, confirm it, and I'll give it all my heart. The next day, I told no one, not a soul, not Shanna, not the team, not my pastor, not anybody. The next day, my pastor called me 8 a.m, and he said, Brad, this morning I was in prayer. Whoa. And he said, and I saw a picture of you and your wife living in Ventura in prayer. Have you ever thought about that? And I said, yeah. And so he said, well, how long till you can move? And I said, give me 10 minutes. Let me go talk to Shanna. So I went inside, talked to Shanna. She's like, what are we going to do with our house? Like trying to like analyze, like, how's this going to work? And I said, I don't know, but the Bible says that if we give up a house for the sake of the gospel, he'd give it back to us, right? And so I call him back, said, I'm in, here's the plan, here's what we want to do. And he says, okay, go find a place to live. And so that next day,
holy moly,
went to go search for a place, put in a ton of applications. That was like a Monday. Tuesday, put in applications. Wednesday, I was at church midweek. And now it's not public. 3 people know, 4 people know. Family didn't know, staff didn't know, nobody knew. I go to church that Wednesday night, and a man named John Hummocky, who had a prophetic and prayer ministry, stopped me. And I was on my way from the main sanctuary to the youth room at a really big church. And he says, Brad, he said, come here. God's told me to pray for you. And so I said, okay. And he goes, right now, I want you to close your eyes and picture the coast. He said, as far as you can see, picture the ocean. God has expanded your ministry, and he's commissioned you to the coast. I said, do you have any clue? I opened my eyes. I said, do you have any clue what's going on? He said, no. I said, I've just been commissioned to the coast. Wow. He goes, wow. And then over the course of the next few weeks, I had probably 8 or 10 people call me with dreams of me pastoring a ministry here. Wow. And just random stuff. I mean, so many things happened within a course of 2 or 3 weeks that I landed in Ventura, and I was crazy enough to think it would all happen immediately.
That's the thing about being prophetic and seeing something. You're like, I see it. Okay, now. And God's like, whoa, yes, but no. Yes, but not yet.
What we tried to do didn't work.
Yeah.
It didn't work. It did not work, and it fell apart.
Did you come alone when you were with just your
there was a team that came at first, but when it didn't work, everyone moved back.
Wow.
And I had to make a choice either to move back or get a job. And so I applied for a job at the rescue mission.
That's a good place.
Here locally.
And there a lot.
And spent 3.5 years just serving in the rescue mission, faithfully.
You're
just
like, whoa, I didn't think this was gonna be.
No, and trying to process and trying to figure out, like, I didn't even know what to do, like what next steps. Wow. All I knew was I had to go into my secret place and figure out, did God speak to me or not?
Wow. Yeah.
And would I be willing to bet my life on that? Like, there's some decisions that you have to make that are just in faith. Like, I know I've heard him, and I'm willing to lose it all in pursuit of that.
Good.
And so, that everybody that I was with left. But the interesting part about God, or the best part about this, is like, man, he's given me so many good friends now. I've never been more surrounded by healthy people in my life. Cool. I've never felt spiritually healthier in my life, like just me and Jesus. It's taken us a lot of time to get here.
Yeah.
You know, like we've been 7 years in this journey, but the church is
Surrounding
only
yourself.
officially August 2018 was our
3 years,
launch.
right?
3 years.
Yeah.
August. I think we'll have Landon on this at some point and a few others. So we're going to hopefully put these out weekly. But yeah, so officially launched 3 years. But I think in that period of, it's about 4 years that we all started hanging out and beginning to develop relationships together.
So you had like the call. Maybe not everybody had the call. God confirmed it. And yeah, you guys got here and didn't look like you thought it was going to look. And people had to go back. But like God confirmed this is your call and this is where you're supposed to be. Right now you're hidden. And maybe we were learning from the culture, like picking, like just listening maybe to the culture, the rescue mission. That's like I
learned so much at the rescue mission. You know what I learned? One of the wild things that I learned, like half the staff that worked for me, the rescue mission spoke Spanish. So I had to work through an interpreter. I learned so much about cross-cultural ministry in that season that like you had to be very careful with what you did and what you said because everything could be misinterpreted. Like someone could think you're mad when you're not mad because they don't understand your language. So you had to learn to
expressions
to communicate in different ways because we didn't understand each other's language. So, and then I had to make an effort to understand their language and they would make an effort to understand mine. And together, like we learned how to actually produce like a really beautiful thing together. So it was awesome. I helped run thrift stores and worked with program men and picked up trash and ministered to the homeless. That's what I did.
That like helps like leading. I mean, think about like a congregation, like leading that and then transitioning to a congregation and like the not business side, but like the just organizational and the needs that are needed, like everything and taking care of people well.
Well, what's interesting is like when we started the nonprofit for Two Trees Church. I personally I had been in full-time megachurch-ish ministry and I had no desire. My desire to be a staff member for a church was gone. I was like, okay, I'm going to be a teaching elder.
Whoa.
I was trying to figure it out my own way. I'm just going to get this. God said, get it done. I'm going to get it done. But really, I wanted Landon to be the first staff member. That was my thought. I was thinking, okay, he's such like a gifted young leader. Like he needs to be the first guy on staff full time, not me. I would rather continue with the rescue mission and do some other stuff. And one day in a prayer meeting, it was Nick, which Nick just spoke this last week at church and he was awesome. It was so powerful. But at this prayer meeting, Nick stood up, just moved by the Holy Spirit. He's like, he's just a really interesting guy when you meet Nick. And so he doesn't do this all the time, but he stood up. He's like, I don't know, man, God's speaking to me. And he says that, I think we need you to lead the minute, like to be on staff and go all in a ministry for us to take steps forward. And it like threw me back. Cause it's like, now we're 2 years into this and it really did just pick up steam over the last year and a half, about 6 months before COVID 2020 happened. And I said, okay, I think it's reasonable to think that I would be all in, you know, if I'm going to lead it. But to be honest, like I didn't have a desire for that. I was really looking for Landon and I ended up praying.
God's like,
No, it was clear.
Yeah. God's like, nope, you.
It was totally clear. I went to prayer. And it's all been built in prayer. Like a lot of these stories you're going to get on these videos, it's all been built in prayer. And so I went to prayer. After that encounter, I had 2 people on the same Sunday come to me and go, Brad, what is it going to take for you to accept a salary from the church? We'll increase our tithe. What do we need to do? We'll donate into it. We just feel like you need to be here full time. And I said, okay. I said, I'll pray about it. It was after Nick had released that. So that Monday I get up and pray and I get Psalm 92 and it says that the righteous man will flourish like the palm tree and grow like the cedar of Lebanon when planted in the house of the Lord. 2 trees.
I was going to ask.
2 trees,
yeah.
2 trees. And I heard that verse in prayer and I'm like, okay, if you want me to do this, you have to confirm it because you know I need to hear your voice. I've been on a journey and I need to hear your voice. If you want me to go all in ministry, I have to hear your voice. And so I schedule a board meeting for a Thursday. That's like a Monday. And I'm praying all week, fasting and praying, like leading into it. Thursday morning comes, and Shanna takes off to go do something with the kids at school, and I'm at home alone, and I'm on my face crying out to God, like messy prayers. Like, have you been there?
Yes.
Okay, so messy prayers. And I'm,
oh yeah, those are good.
I'm saying, God, I need you.
Yep.
Like, this is a need. This is like a son going to his dad saying, you know that I have to have your voice in this decision. If I don't have your voice, I'm going to second guess it down the road. So I have to have your voice. Good. And I said, Lord, one time, I know this is reckless, and there's some people on here who will crucify me for this. I know this. I said, I'm going to open this Bible, put my finger down, and the first verse it lands on, I'm going to believe that it's you speaking to me as though you're in the flesh. As though you're in the flesh. I'm just going to believe this is from you. And no one's around, by myself, and I go, okay, Lord, here it goes. 1, 2, 3. I put my finger down, and it was 2 Timothy 4:1. He said, I solemnly charge you in the presence of God and Christ Jesus, who is to judge the living and the dead, to preach the word.
Hey.
To be ready in season and out of season, to exhort, reprove with great patience and instruction. He said, be sober in all things, do the work of an evangelist, and fulfill your ministry. Woo. It was almost like God stepped into the room and spoke to me. And I was like crying a little bit. I was like, whoa, we're doing this.
That's crazy.
We're doing this. And so I called Shanna. I said, hey, God confirmed it. We're going in. And so I went to the board meeting that night, and I said, I'm going to just visually, like, push out my poker chips, like, figuratively. And I'm going all in. Mm-hmm. If you guys are all in, I'm all in. And it was Nick that night. Nick's like, we're doing this. We got your back. Like, we're doing it. It was like Nick totally moved. It was unanimous. Everybody's like, we're going to do this. I'm like, whew, we're going to do this. And so I went the next day and put in my notice at work. And that's when we really saw things begin to take off. It's like
name change. I'm not just the actual name change, but like it's like I feel like God was just stamping like a new name. Like all through the Bible, there's the new name season, the new name. And he's like, here we go. We're stepping in. Everything that I've spoken over you, this is now like coming out. It's not like you're up here, you're up here, but like you are stepping into the calling that I have for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You're here, and you had a team of people. I mean, how did you like? I want to know, but like, I also want to interview other people.
I don't know if we have all the time today, but like.
I know, but God brought in people like left and right.
It was supernatural.
So cool.
I mean, it's absolutely wild. There's a lot more to say about this, but like. He began to handpick people for this church. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. He hand chose our worship leaders. He hand chose our board members. He hand chose our kids ministry leaders, the core families that we would do life with and build with, that would form our culture. Like God handpicked them. People like John Will, our youth pastor, like stepping into church.
Confirmation that he had. Too.
Yeah, John Will, our youth pastor, was actually called supernatural. Like he walked in to our church after his church had closed their doors in Camarillo, a city next to us. Had also had a failed experiment, and so he walks in, and I had been praying for a week, sincerely and fervently, God, send me a youth pastor, send me a youth pastor, send me a youth pastor. John Will walks in, I say, let's go get coffee. I don't even realize that he actually moved over to be a youth pastor with that church and was never able to do it. We sit down, and I'm like, you're hired, but I don't have money to pay you. Like, so you're in, and
it's all just serve and love, and
it was birth. Like, it's supernatural. That's all I could say. Like, nobody could live what we've lived through and say that God's not real.
That's so good. I remember coming back from Reading and right away meeting with you, and I was like, just because I trust my brother, I trust Landon, and I know like what he was doing, and like I didn't know you, but I knew you, and I'm like, I'm here. Like, I want to do whatever you need.
You were a soldier, but what's funny is Moriah, before we were doing stuff like this together, Moriah was like walking parks with me, doing random evangelism. If like when we were in our radical phase, which we'll probably get to here in the next couple of weeks, like through COVID, like all the stuff we did that was a little wild, she would like she was the guard shack lady. Like you were like, you were doing all like the trench work.
Yeah, I'm like, whatever.
The unseen work. She didn't care. Like before you're ever on a camera, you were doing all the unseen things, and it was beautiful. Like you're just somebody who's down to go to war. Like,
oh yeah, maybe too often. I don't know.
It's good. We're in it together. Let's go.
But that's so good. And like, so just like generally, we'll get into it later. But like, the last 2 years have been a lot. Like, what hope did you have, or how did like? Because a lot of people, it's not about the building. A church is more than a building. But how did you get through the time of the COVID and just like the hope? What did you have to press forward and keep going with people? Or like,
I'm not sure there's ever been a worse time to plant a church.
All right, that's what I'm. But instead,
strategically, like I don't know if there's ever been a worse season to do this, but somehow like.
Because it felt like we went from just trying to survive in the old building, and like surviving, and then instead of just like dying off, we went from survival mode to thriving, and it's not normal. But like with Jesus and listening to Him.
When we made a major shift, we flipped the vision.
Yeah.
I think when you first start in church planting, we went completely against the grain and what's countercultural for church thinking. It's like how to attract people. We stopped even doing follow-up cards for a season. When COVID hit, we shut down like everybody else. Obviously we weren't sure. We're like, are we all going to die? Is this the apocalypse? Like, and then I remember Pentecost Sunday, the end of May. Remember, we came back for the first time. We spent 3 months, no church, because nobody knew. And then, we're able to get more information. We kind of understood what was going on. And then we came back together. And I would say that Sunday, we all looked at each other and we were like, there's no way we could stop doing this. Like, God was clearly present. Like, it was like a manifested presence. Like, we felt it. We all walked away like, oh my gosh, that was like an outpouring that Sunday, and the church had doubled in size. Look, what was interesting, we left and people were like, I could take church or leave it. But then once church was taken, people were like, whoa, I am hungry for this. Like, I'm way hungry. But then that summer was just the most controversial summer of our lives, like really. And I think in that summer, I was getting so much criticism from people. And it's almost like our ministry is being hijacked politically, and it's still to this day, like everybody wants us to be something for them. And I frustrate a lot of people because I don't align with either side. I align with Jesus first and foremost. And that frustrates people because I'm just going to the Word of God. And everyone has to bring these other things up to tell me why I need to be something other than who Jesus is clearly revealed to be in Scripture.
Kingdom doesn't submit to a political or religious spirit.
No. We're just reading in Acts today, Acts 17. It says that these men have come and they have upset the whole world. And it says that they're acting contrary to the decrees of Caesar. And what's interesting about that is I don't think they were actually trying to be controversial. They were acting in their new nature. They were just doing what they knew to do. For us, being together and gathering as a church is like breathing. I love Sunday morning. It's all I know. Worship is all I know. When we made a choice, because they shut us down again after we come back, they made a choice to shut us down again. And we started to see like that there was some discrepancy, that's what I'll say, between like what was happening and what we were being told to do. I remember one time we were kicked out of our lawn chairs at the beach. Like, oh my gosh, we're sitting in lawn chairs and the officer came and bless his heart because we ended up praying for him. But we're sitting in our lawn chairs and he comes and he says, hey, I'm going to have to ask you to get out of your lawn chairs. And I'm like, and what, sit on the towel? And he made me and my family get off our lawn chairs and sit on the towel. It was in that encounter where I was like, what? There's nothing remotely even different about this position change from my seat to my lawn or to my towel, like that would make it one healthier than the other. It became such a political thing. And I think we lost trust, honestly, in like some of what we were being asked to do. So we went back to prayer. And we decided it was time to worship. It was time to worship. Some of the stuff that we were being told to do and asked to do was just like nonsense.
Maybe kingdom answers for that.
To be honest with you, and I know that's controversial, and I realize it's on video, but I'm not taking it back. It is what it is. We just decided to worship. And we didn't, it wasn't, and it's funny, people would come and they'd be like, yeah, like stick it to him. We're like, we're not sticking it to anybody. We're about Jesus. We just want to worship. Yeah. We're not here to make a political position. That's not it. We just want to worship. And right now, if you're sick, you can't go to the hospital. If you're hurting, you can't go get counseling or therapy or sit with somebody. You can't even get out of your house. So if the church shuts its doors, if we stop, and I say shut your door figuratively, like if we're not even available.
Totally.
If we're not even available for people, I mean, the Bible says lay hands. Like there is no pandemic exception to the Great Commission.
How was Jesus with the lepers?
Yes, like, and I was just looking at it all. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I understand. There's a lot of churches that stayed shut down for a long time, and I will not judge them because a lot of them, they have very good relationships with certain people, and they're trying to manage and navigate it all, and everyone's trying to do it. I'm saying for us, just for us, hear me. No judgment to any other church that stayed shut down. For us, we just could not.
Which seemed like, what? But it was like, no, this is right.
No, we have to. And we're outdoors and we're safe and it is what it is. And what we found was we went from 20 people sitting around an acoustic guitar to within a year, it was just like all these radical people were drawn in, and we were doing outreach on the coast, on the bike trail, and like just people were coming. I remember specifically, I'll keep her name confidential, but a woman in our church came and she had tried to get help because she had Bell's palsy. And that story sticks out to me so much because it was such a defining moment for me. And she came and she was fully masked, and I would always mask if somebody was at risk or whatever. And we're outdoors and she came and she's touched by the service and she's crying, and she said, Brad, she said, I've went everywhere. I've had acupuncture, I've had Eastern medicine, I've tried nutrition, I've had so many doctor's appointments, I don't know what to do. She says, I've developed Bell's palsy, my face is paralyzed, and I don't know what to do. And I just felt God lead me, and I just boldly asked her, I said, would you mind if I touched your face? I know this is controversial right now. Would you mind if I touched your face and prayed over you? And she said, please. And so she took her mask down and I touched her face. And I just asked that God would touch her life and heal her Bell's palsy. I rebuked the Bell's palsy, right? She thanked me. It was a very emotional encounter. That night, our kids ministry leader at the time called me and she said, Brad, I don't know what you did to so-and-so. She said, she's freaking out right now. She said she's at home and she's telling her husband that she doesn't know what's going on because there's electrical surges going through her face. And she said that she was 98% healed by the next morning. 98% healed. And she's still to this day healed, a part of our ministry, like taking steps forward in her faith. But that moment is a defining moment for me because there were so many times where it's like, if people couldn't have access to Jesus, like they were going to stay hurt. They were going to stay sick and stay broken down. You know how many people we actually saw breakthrough in COVID praying while they're on ventilators in hospitals? And I realized there's a lot of people who lost people. I lost people, but it didn't change that I was not going to just believe that God could come and do something impossible. Like I lost people, literally. Like our loan officer for our house. I mean, she, within 2 weeks, we were working on a loan. We were growing together. We saw God's hand on this relationship to she got COVID, to within a week, it wasn't going well. She's going to have to go to the hospital within the next week. Within 3 weeks, she died. And I got super connected to that family. And I had the choice, like in the aftermath of that, like to go back to God and say, Lord, I don't understand that. I don't have answers for that. And I'm not going to place blame for why that happened and why some people get healed and some people don't. I just know, Jesus, you are who you say you are.
We got to do what he says.
And I'm just going to be faithful to you. And I'm just going to go out. I'm going to make myself at the very minimum available to people just in case something could happen that could change someone's life.
That's good.
That's where it started with me. Like it was never like, and so we stopped pursuing like getting people in, and we just made ourselves available and we worshiped. We stop following up. We stop stressing. Like, who's coming to church?
Yeah.
If you don't want to come to church, don't come to church.
Yeah.
Like, it's
That's
okay.
what helped with being home. It was like you can't even see anybody.
Yeah.
And then when we got together, it was like hunger, people just hungry. A theme that I see, and I know because I've been here, but like also I'm hearing in your stories is laying on the face before God and surrendering it and in prayer and prayer and prayer and prayer and like surrender it again and again has been a theme through this whole timeline, and that we'll keep seeing like in future times. But prayer and worship, like I remember going with John Will, we texted our friends. It was kind of when we were like safe to get together but kind of unsure, and we sent out a text like, who wants to get to the church for prayer tonight? And it was only John and I that could show up, and we got there and we were like wordless, like we were just told some news in the news, and we were like, what do we do? And we just prayed, and it was awkward. We didn't know, it was just us two, and we were just in the old building just like, this is all we know to do. It's like, all I know to do is pray. All I know to do is worship you, even when I don't see. And we sang this song all the time, even when I don't see it, even when I can't feel it. You know, you're worthy. What does it say? Even when I don't see it, you're, you know, that, like that song. And I feel like we sang that even before COVID happened, and it was like leading into it.
Like
it's like okay, keep going.
I've never seen a time in my personal life that we have been challenged to demonstrate what we believe
In the lows and in the highs.
like over the last year and a half.
Yeah.
This is such an open door to show people who Jesus is. And hear me, I know somebody out there, you're like, well, if you love people, why would you get them sick? I didn't try to get anybody sick. I never want anyone to be, I wasn't trying to be a super spreader. I wasn't trying to do any of that. That was never the heart. The heart was, man, we just love people. And that summer was just a controversial summer. And when I took everybody's opinion out of it, I went to prayer, didn't think about the fear of the virus, didn't think about the social implications of what we were doing and all this stuff. When I took it all down to its simplest form, it says, don't be led astray from the simplicity and the purity of devotion to Christ. When I went to its purest form, there was no way I was going to stop worshiping. Like there was just no way.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, do you believe it? And that was it.
That's good. Right.
But that's where our church took off.
Yay! I'm so excited for the next weeks to come and to hear more stories and dig in deeper, because there's so many other details and stories, testimonies, and
this is fun for me too. We haven't done any creative work really, and so your idea, we've got a few things going, but we've just really been in a season almost of just worship and warfare for 2.5, 3 years, where it was just all I'm thinking about is him and this, worship. That's it.
And now it's people. So inviting people into the story is huge, because there's so many new people that we're getting to know. We want to share these things that are important and our story. And it's when you meet someone on a date, you want to get to know them and them you, and it's a relationship. And I got so many things I'm so excited to tell you. And I see that for this church, it's a journaling of stories and writing down visually, and so this is good.
So good. Well, let's go. Let's get some more people involved too.
Thanks for sharing. And
you did amazing too, by the way. So that's good. Yeah.
I just listening, and it's good. So, whoop, whoop.
Thank you guys.